Hello, sports world. It's a blustery, wintry night here in Western Pennsylvania, and what a better time than Friday night to talk to you guys about Mountaineer sports. So I have Frank on tonight, and we're going to discuss everything you can think about on Mountaineer sports, and we're going to answer questions you have in the chat, and just going to have a good old time.
Good to see you there, Shane. How you doing?
I'm doing great. What a great night to talk about Mountaineer sports. It's a blustery, wintry mess out there in Western Pennsylvania, and I'm sure it's nice where you're at, but you know, the Midwest is going to get hit with a storm, and what a great weekend to be you know, locked in a house watching pro football. But tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the West Virginia Mountaineers, right?
You got it. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
And it is nice in Florida, in Southwest Florida. So we're connecting from northeast to northeastern Pennsylvania to Southwest Florida. So, and again, we're very, very sorry that Joey couldn't be with us tonight. I'm filling in for him. Joey, get back 100% very soon.
Yep. Well, you're my favorite pivot guy, so I'm glad to have you on. And we make I think we you put them up and we knock them down together. So yeah, Tim, thanks for the well wishes for Joey. Yeah, there's Joey. Just got back from got Joey at the doctor's right now. Okay, good. That's good to hear.
I think that may be a vet, but that's good because they need to go there. This has been it is. Well,
and I hope Kelly's doing good too. She was at the doctor recently, so I hope Kelly's on the mend.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Who else is on the mend? The Mountaineer program. So we're going to discuss expectations versus what reality is. Okay. And if you're 20 years old or 22 years old and you go into a bar, you always think you're 9.5 when you're 7.5, right? Because you got a little bit of swagger. And that's how, you know, people have the confidence to walk up to someone and introduce themselves, etc. It's good. It's good to have a little bit of swagger. Okay. We're going to talk about what is the perception of the Mountaineers from the national media versus what we see ourselves as. And I know going back to the pregame show we had before our bowl in the Mayo Bowl, I talked about how the Mountaineers, if they would win and give a good showing, I really think they're a top 25 team. I really felt that way, and I didn't think I was being a homer, but obviously the folks out there that know more than I do disagree, and you know, we're going to talk a little bit about it. And you know, you're a fact guy, and you always have the numbers to prove it. So it's not just, you know, based off of conjecture and what we're thinking or feeling. So what are your thoughts on that, Frank? I mean, are all fan bases like that?
Well, you know, I think we put together this chart for you, fans, and I think it's illustrative. We were talking, Shane and I, before the show tonight, that it's amazing what about 8 or 9 months could do. Because if you think about where we were last year, particularly during the summer, getting into the fall, the magazines came out and the predictions were made. West Virginia was not very good. It's going to finish, we've heard this a million times, last in the Big 12, and the fan base was upset. We heard a coach say, and you've heard this, you know, they have MAC talent, et cetera, and people, you know, take it with a grain of salt. Now, what I pulled out, and this is one of the magazines that you can find at your local store that basically you can buy for, I don't know, $7, $8, $9 that goes through all the predictions. It's Lindy Sports. They've been around forever. It's their 2023 Big 12 projections last year. And then we added performance. And so the legend is green means the team won a bowl, red means they lost a bowl. And then there are the predictions from Texas down to WVU. What's interesting about the no bowl in the bowl, if you look just at the no bowl, it's pretty well distributed across the ranking.
Right.
TCU was predicted to be third in the Big 12, no bowl. Baylor was predicted to be sixth, no bowl. West Virginia, no bowl, but won their bowl. Cincinnati, no bowl. Houston. And so you can see, and in fact, the numbers there, national projection, they predicted Texas would be number 9 nationally, and that K-State would be 14th nationally. So that's how to read that. And then I put there also the actual Big 12 records. K-State 6-3, all the way down to WVU 6-3, and you can see there's. I always look for patterns, and it's very difficult to see a pattern in this. You could almost do as well with a dartboard. I'm not casting aspersions of Lindy Sports. We were talking before that ESPN, based on their matchup predictor, I believe I went back and tried to find the file and I couldn't. I think they predicted WVU would be 4-8 based on preseason matchup predictors. And so take it with a grain of salt, because clearly, WVU had a great year. Now, it's not just an issue of 2023, and this is one of the things that we wanted to hit tonight, is that there are projections, which are expectations, but then there's performance, which is reality. Now it's flipped. And now we have folks who are saying, West Virginia is going to do very well. Fans are excited, rightfully so. But it really is the flip side of what happened last year. And we all know the Big 12 is changing with four new teams. So I'll stop there, Shane. You've seen this chart before. Any comments you want to make about it?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but I think the one thing I'll give them credit that they did get right was K-State. K-State and Oklahoma were pretty much where we thought they were going to be, minus TCU. TCU was the outlier, and West Virginia were the outlier. Those are the two outliers I see: the Mountaineers and TCU. If you were to flip those two, and move like Oklahoma up, or even just move Texas Tech with WVU, you would get a little bit closer. But another one is Kansas. Throw those cats in there, because those guys were balling this year.
That's right. Absolutely. Now, what's interesting about this, I'll put this other up that we talked about earlier. Now, here are they even call it way too early, and I'm not sure that's accurate.
Right.
Way too early, yeah, we're in January. I really believe projections in August are way too early. Because as you said earlier, the reality is performance. But what's interesting, what you said about TCU, right? TCU had an unexpectedly bad year after being in the college football playoff. We know that. Baylor had an unexpectedly bad year. Texas Tech had an unexpectedly bad year. Many prognosticators were saying, watch out for UCF. They're going to do well in the Big 12. They struggled, even though they played competitively. So you'll notice in this way too early set of rankings, these all came out this week. You have ESPN, USA Today, Sports Illustrated, the Action Network, CBS Sports, Yahoo Sports, and Pro Football Focus. What you don't see TCU, you don't see Baylor, you don't see Texas Tech, you don't see any of those teams, you don't see UCF, because they have to prove themselves again. So what's interesting about this is that the consensus, honestly, I don't trust, has Arizona the top team. They may well be. They've got Arizona, Utah, Oklahoma State, which, by the way, we pointed this out on the other program, is not having a good year either in the portal or in recruiting high schools. You got K-State, great bowl win, and you've got KU, with WVU being the only one of the 7 that we have here outlets ranked WVU in the top 25, and it's 24. So WVU's has to go out again and prove it on the field. But it's interesting to me that that things are the way they are, and I think, and I'll stop here and turn it to you. I think we put way too much credence in the projections and the expectations. And what I think would really behoove us is to spend more time analyzing these teams, parsing the information, and then coming to conclusions that we can defend, but we have to defend it educationally, because otherwise, the last person who has something to say can control the discussion.
Yeah, I hear you. But when I look at UCF and give them over past year the eyeball test, I think they're a much better program and in much better shape than what their record indicates. Okay, so and then also TCU, we seem to have a very short memory. Not too long ago they were playing. What a year and like a week ago they were playing. Playing ball. On the big stage. It's funny. And Arizona, I have to look up what their record was, but 2 years ago, no one was talking about them. So, it's frustrating that, teams that don't have the clout or the blue chip programs, they seem to be able to constantly be in the conversation. And, what I thought West Virginia was past that point based off of their performance in the aughts and in the early teens that, and even back to, the early 90s with Coach Nealon's teams. Even, in the 80s and early 90s, I remember getting excited when I'd get the Daily Athenaeum and I could see, where's West Virginia? West Virginia finally break into the top 25, and it was usually like the 3rd through the 5th week.
That's right.
If they were like 4-1, or if they beat a ranked Virginia Tech, that's when you'd see them pop up and them start getting into the conversation. And I think we went full circle back to that. And it's, and I don't want to hear that, Big 12's like the Big East or anything. No, I'm going back to when we were independent. We became a conference program in 1990 when we joined the Big East in football. And then I think it was 94, 95 in basketball. But, even then I'm looking here and, Coach Nealon, 81, 82, 83, 84, 4 years in a row of being in a bowl. They won the Peach Bowl, lost the Gator Bowl, won the Hall of Fame Classic Bowl, won the Blue Bonnet Bowl. 85, 89, did make a bowl. Then they lost 3 bowls from 87 to 89. And don't forget, in 88, they were 11-1. They lost the Fiesta Bowl when Major Harris got hurt. So, and I'm tying this into the fact that I think it's generational. Okay, if you went back and were a fan and can remember old Mountaineer Field, which is right before my time, but I remember the transitional time before, West Virginia had the Pat Whites, the Steve Slaytons, and were always talked about on Game Day and ESPN. I think the younger generation, being my generation and the next generation, are a little bit spoiled. And then the generation that just started to become Mountaineer fans in the past 4 or 5 years, I don't know what their expectations are, but they probably aren't very high. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's definitely something generationally, and it's not just in football. I think it's in basketball. When I was growing up, the sport on camp, it was basketball. basketball was, before the Nealon era, Bobby Bowden, Jim Carlin era. It was really basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, West Virginia played the national championship game, but that's going back a long time. So I think that one of the things that I think we have to contextualize everything. We showed this last week before the CFP and before the projections came out for next season. So the question now is, now that we have our first peek at what people are saying, prognosticators, with respect to the quality, let's look at that conference schedule. Baylor is not considered at least at this point, a heavy hitter. They didn't have a good year last year, but
Yep.
Kansas is on that list. That's a home game. K-State's on that list. So two of those teams that are the top 5 by those various ranking services are home games. And then we have to go to play the consensus number 1, which is Arizona and Oklahoma State. So now we can look at the schedule we looked at last week with a little finer eye, because agencies like ESPN and Sports Illustrated are basically saying, watch out for Kansas State, watch out for Kansas, watch out for Arizona, watch out for Oklahoma State. Although you and I talked, we wouldn't discount Texas Tech, TCU, or UCF. So now you're getting, well over half the conference.
Yeah.
Then you have WVU. But again, it all comes down to the performance on the field, and we can't take these prognostications as sacred, because they're often wrong. And I wanted to stop and say, we flashed on the screen information about Joey. We're sorry to hear it's pneumonia in both lungs. I presume he's in the hospital. And I think, Kelly, thanks for the update on Joey. We all hope that he gets
better, buddy.
Yeah.
He didn't sound good when I talked to him today, so I'm hoping he gets better.
Yeah, I'm not surprised because he was coughing. And I know that Yvette appreciates the concern that viewers than we have. And Joey does a great job with this channel, and we need him back, but he's got to get well soon.
Hey, I'll tell you what, I want to just take a moment and, if in the comment section, give Joey some love. Okay, guys, you've been sending it, but send us some more. Now, you're a man of fact. You're an educator. Okay. I want you to pull that screen back up, Frank, and I want to go by your feels. What is your gut telling you, game by game, based off of what you've seen last year, what you've read, with the home one? I'll go first, and then you can go. For the home games, I'm thinking Baylor is a win. Kansas is a coin toss. What do you think of those two? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you're absolutely correct. I've been watching Baylor very closely because as you said, I was an educator in higher education, and it's a truism that not every school that has a major college athletic program values the athletic program in the sense that it's a priority. Now, that's probably not well stated. It's a priority, but take, for example, the University of Minnesota. They don't have as an express goal, you'll never find it in writing, but you're never going to have anybody in administration on that campus saying, our goal is to win a national championship in football or basketball in the next 10 years. Now, you take a school like UCF, I wouldn't be a bit surprised behind closed doors. They're talking about how important it is for them to perform, not just in football now, but that win at Kansas in basketball this week means a lot to a school like UCF. That's a new school. It's only been around for about 50 years. Baylor is one of those schools that
Yep.
athletics is extremely important, and football is the sport. I know they won a national championship recently in basketball, but in Texas, football reigns supreme.
The,
Now,
the fact
I was
the
going to say,
fact with Baylor is the stadium, McLean, right?
absolutely. And here's a political truism. Now that Texas and Texas A&M are A&M has been out of the conference. Wow. Now Texas is out of the conference. So the battle now among Texas Tech, Baylor, and TCU, I wouldn't include Houston. Who's going to be the king of Texas?
Yep.
And so those schools are going to throw a lot of money into winning that. But I think Baylor is a few years away. They've fallen down hard. Kansas is a unique story because it has been basketball, basketball, basketball. They've got a great coach. They've turned it around. The question is how far they can go in the winning direction. But we know what happened in Morgantown 2 years ago when I thought West Virginia had that game in the bag, and wow, Kansas comes and wins in overtime. So I think it's a toss-up. Go ahead, continue.
Well, with Kansas, the pendulum is swinging the other direction. I think they are mirroring what Baylor did. They're getting a new stadium. I think the focus is always going to be on basketball in Kansas, but you know they're becoming a really good football school, and I'm saying that with just a couple good seasons, but it's I think it's going to happen for them. Kansas State has always had a good football culture. I've seen games out there. It's a lot of fun. The atmosphere in Manhattan is a lot like Morgantown on game day. I dig it. But I think Kansas is and Baylor. Okay, let's get back to Baylor. Baylor and West Virginia are like the two teams that when they do play, it's always just a shootout, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then Kansas State, I don't know about that game. I think we can beat Iowa State. I think we can win. We can beat UCF. But if you look at those five, let's just look at those 5 home games. I think it's a success. I think if they win 4 of the 5, that's good.
Yeah, I agree. UCF is going to be much better.
Yeah.
They played competitively. We talked about that. That game they lost to Baylor at home was a stunner. But UCF football means a lot to them. They've got a national level coach. They're recruiting very well. They have the money. And I hate to say this, being an alum of Iowa State as well as West Virginia, Iowa State, I love their coach, Matt Campbell, who came from Toledo. He's terrific. But the way they played against Memphis in the Liberty Bowl, I watched that game. For those of you who didn't watch the game or don't know,
I watched it.
Iowa State had 0 rushing yards against Memphis. Now, Memphis was playing a home game, but still, I was shocked at how they did. And I think next year it becomes a huge year for Iowa State and Matt Campbell. They can't continue the way they are. And so, the home slate, let's say we get Baylor, we get Iowa State. Do we go 3-2? And as we said last week, we have an advantage here because half of the conference will play 5 home games in 24. Half of the conference will play 4. So we play 5 at home and 4 on the road because you can't split into nine games. But I just wish we were getting Arizona at home. Although this year, West Virginia, with the exception of what happened at Houston and obviously at Oklahoma, played well on the road. But I don't know. It's boy, I'd love to see us, clean the slate, maybe go 4-1. 3-2. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm going to throw a wrench in here, Frank. You ready?
Sure.
So those are your expectations for Baylor, Kansas, Kansas State, Iowa State, UCF. Okay. Going down to the bottom, Arizona is good. That might be 150-50 game on there. Cincinnati, Texas Tech are probably 60-40. It could be either way. So I would say away is another situation. If you win 3 out of the 5, or 3 out of the 4, I should say, because we do have an away game at Pitt. I'm throwing in there. That's why I said 4 out of the 5. Sure. But we have a home game against Penn State. This is the outlier. This is the wrench in the works. Hear me out. If the Mountaineers win their first game, expectations will be very, very different in Morgantown. People will expect to win that Kansas game for sure. They'll be expected to beat Arizona. Well, we beat Penn State, but Penn State and Arizona are apples and oranges. But the expectations will be lifted to, I think, almost like that image of someone's head being a balloon. So, what are your thoughts, Frank?
Well, I agree with you, but if we could probably put any major team from a major conference and look at their schedule, and they would say, boy, they would have to scratch their head. Fans would have to scratch their heads because you just can't say we're going to run the slate, even the big boys. But I would say this, the thing that I liked about this team, and I think it'll serve us well next year, is the culture of this team. The culture and the ability to bounce back. For example, after that loss to Oklahoma, and then to win 3 in a row after that is important. And on that conference away schedule, my feeling is, at least, about my analysis, we know Arizona's strong. The way they came back against Oklahoma in the bowl game was impressive. I think Texas Tech, even though they're not ranked high, at least in the early analyses, I think Texas Tech is going to be a lot stronger than people think. They're having a great year in the portal, great year in the recruiting. And I think Oklahoma State is not going to be as strong as they were. Remember, they started 2023 losing to, was it Central Arkansas? I can't remember.
South Alabama.
South
Alabama, yep.
It's amazing. And they turned it around largely because they had a great running back, but they turned it around and they beat us in Morgantown. Cincinnati, like all the teams that came in last year, and if you look at our schedule, last season we played all 4 of the newcomers of 2023. This year we only played 2. There were only 2 teams in the Big 12 last year that played all 4 newcomers, and it was West Virginia and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State really lucked out. They got 3 of the 4 at home. We got 2 at home, 2 on the road. And everybody said we were going to lose that game in Orlando, and we didn't. But I think Cincinnati, they're doing better in recruiting. They're doing okay in the portal. I think they're going to get their sea legs. But I think, as I said with Baylor, I don't think we're going to see that great improvement next year. And so, it's
they got the money. They got the money, Frank. Yeah,
they do, and they want to be able to compete with Ohio State. They're never going to be able to compete. I think Ohio State is just a juggernaut, but they're trying to get in that league. So, but as I said, it's the culture that I really like. That was a big question mark. Dale Wolfley talked about it extensively over the summer. Didn't like what we saw in terms of culture, but the culture, I think, is strong, and I like what they're doing with the portal. They're losing some players, some good players, but they're getting some really good ones in. I think there's some real nuggets recruited at the high school level. And so we saw the projections that Timothy said. He thinks at least 8-4, maybe 9-2.
Yeah, that's what we're shooting for.
Yeah. And it's going to take all hands on deck. Injuries are the wild card, obviously, to be able to get through it without having to have people sit out for extended periods of time. Is 9-3 and 10-2 possible? Well, you and I have talked about this. I said it last week. That Penn State game is huge. West Virginia now has its foot in the door with a 9-4 season and with the bowl win, but it has to do more to get on the national map. Beating Penn State is priority one. I believe that West Virginia will beat Penn State in Morgantown on August 31st. And then that sets the stage for what comes next, obviously, and the bar is set high. But don't count out SUNY Albany. They're in the football championship division, but they went to the playoffs this year and won a few games. And so the State University of New York is starting to put some money in athletics, and you're going to see Albany is one. The University of Buffalo is in the MAC. Not great shakes, but Albany, I think, is probably the best of that breed.
Yeah, you don't want to fall into the same category as Pitt and lose to a team that you have no reason to lose to. But I'm going to go back in the time machine, Frank, and remember a time when we used to play Miami, and maybe there was like a Notre Dame or somebody else on the schedule, or Penn State, in the 80s. And you looked at the schedule like, well, hopefully they score, or, they give a good showing. And as a fan, you kind of came to the acceptance that those are going to be losses, but, we'll have a good season. And that was your expectation. Okay. Nowadays, last year, that was Shane's expectation. I looked at the schedule. I'm like, that's probably a loss. And I felt confident in that. I look at the schedule now, Frank, and I am happy to report that every one of those games, West Virginia can go into and win. And I'm going to talk about Colorado for a second. I like to, give Dion a hard time, but he was spot on, and he was worth what they paid him, even at 4-8, because the year before last, every game was, I hope we have a good game. I hope we score. They went into every game last year thinking they could win. And every game they had a chance to win. Last year, the only game that West Virginia had no chance in hell of winning was Oklahoma. They got outballed, and they got punched in the mouth, and they just laid down like a fish.
Yeah.
Every other game, they should have won that Oklahoma State game. I think it was there. I'm not going to be negative, but there were some issues. I don't think the players were utilized properly. There was some mismanagement, but the players played well enough to win. They didn't win. I think they played better than Oklahoma State, and they were better than Oklahoma State on that day. They just happened to lose. Same with Houston. They pounded the crap out of Houston, end up losing, okay? But the only game that stands out that they just got flat out beat. Now, they got beat by Penn State, okay? But Oklahoma was just blatantly, they shouldn't even been there. There were flashes of a good ball club against Penn State, but that's the first game. I'll give them a pass there. What are your thoughts, Frank?
Well, I think you're absolutely correct. And I was just thinking, based on what you started to say, is that one of the things that's amazing about these lists is Colorado is nowhere there. I mean, Colorado is not in the top 6. And again, these various sources, they're reading each other's rankings, and there may be some talk among each other. But what's interesting is that no one, I don't know if I'd use the phrase, went out on the limb. But I think it also says that you're as good as how you ended. And yeah, Colorado won some early games, then got on a losing streak, and you can't count out. You just cannot count out Colorado again. But they're not on this list. And we talked on our other show, the Mountaineer Locker Room. We've been following the portal and recruiting. Colorado and Prime has said this. It's a portal game, and so the last time I looked, like on Wednesday, Colorado was ranked number one in the portal in terms of the gets they're getting on the portal. Not so much at all on high school recruiting. So I think you're right, and I would go back to what you said about Penn State. Some people said that's going to be a blowout. It wasn't. They went toe to toe. What would that game have been if Penn State, West Virginia had played in the 8th game of the season? Might have been a very difficult game. And the other thing that people have pointed out, and people have written about this, is that, this was an important learning experience year for Neil Brown. Think of that Houston game.
We talked about that. He's doing what Bobby Bowden did in the 70s. He's learning as these games are happening, and he's not making it. Good for him. He's not making the same mistakes. He's picking up what's being put down, and I'm happy. That made me a happy fan. When I saw the baloney, the crap that we saw in the field, that Houston game, there was, oh my goodness, who was it they're playing against? And there was a bad penalty and something happened, and I could just see the wind going out of the sails of the Mountaineers, and the same thing that happened when they're playing Oklahoma State happened again. And it didn't. He kind of readjusted them, pulled them back. I really think they were well coached the second half of the year. Yeah. It was a tale of two coaches.
Yeah, and along those lines, and again, you learn by your mistakes. When you talk with coaches, they'll talk about, it's offense, it's defense, and it's special teams. And I've looked at the NCAA data, and West Virginia was not competitive in two ways. Very low percentage of kicks getting into the end zone, and also the return yards. And so, when I looked at those data about 2 weeks ago, it's very clear that West Virginia's kickoff team needs a lot of work. We got to get a kicker who can kick that ball into the end zone. We have a great place kicker. Field goal percentage was great. But the bottom line is we've got to keep players from returning kicks. And you think of what happened in that Baylor game, shouldn't even have been a game if it weren't for special teams. So you learn by that. And, I don't think we'll see that next year.
Now, I don't want to talk about Prime too much, but going back on that, I looked it up. They're the Washington State game and the Oregon game were the only games that were blowouts on their schedule. So, they were Colorado was 4-8. Just like we said, just like West Virginia was probably out of 2 ball games, like they couldn't play. Flip-flop West Virginia and Colorado. Very easily, West Virginia could have been in the same situation at 4-8. Sure. Fans don't realize that. With the glass half full, the glass half empty, you have to also be cognizant of the fact that we're that close to being a 4-8 team. Yeah, we were. We had 9 wins. That's fantastic. But going in the next year, we're not a Michigan. We're not. We're not playing ball like Washington was. Or even Utah was for a little while, but it's going to be fun. I can't wait to see what happens. And hopefully, you'll be back on here a few times for us to talk about that because I enjoy the back and forth we have. And, I am more of a dreamer and you're more of a stats guy. And I have to bring myself down to reality,
But it takes both. And certainly, it's interesting if timing is everything, obviously. First of all, I appreciate the comments and enjoy working with you. But if we were doing this show at halftime of the Duquesne game, and someone walked in and said, I see the future. West Virginia is going to win a bowl game and end up being 9-4. And we're there at halftime of the Duquesne game. Remember, West Virginia they could have been a tie at half if there had been a pass caught in the end zone for Duquesne. But we came out in the second half and just blew them away. But an unknown to many fans, wideout Clement, who had like, I don't know how many, 100 and some yards of receiving, and we blew out Duquesne. But if we had done this show at halftime, I wonder what the conversation would have been. So, hope springs eternal. But as a colleague of mine says, hope is not a strategy. But you got to have hope. You got to have faith. They're the virtues. But you got to be smart. And I think you're absolutely correct. Leo Brown learned a lot this year as an offensive play caller. And if you think about the greater confidence he got in the bowl game, having the holder basically run, God bless him.
He got a nut transplant, and those babies are big.
That's right. And so I know there are naysayers out there. I actually have gotten off some of the fan sites because I don't want to get into a verbal fisticuffs with some fans who are still critical and negative. I think, I agree with Timothy. I think it's looking great for West Virginia, but as you go up the mountain, it gets more difficult. And now
absolutely,
you don't have Cincinnati and Houston coming in. You've got a juggernaut, I think, with a great coach at Arizona. Utah, never count them out. Great coach.
No, good defense always.
Colorado's going to keep on reloading. Arizona State is the only one that, at this point, I can't figure it out. Being in Phoenix with great fans, they're a bit of
I can't. I don't understand why I can't. I just don't understand why they're so just apathetic towards college football there. They have like that festive, fun party atmosphere. They're always in the Playboy's top 25, back in the day, best party schools. You would think that transition into tailgating, throwing some hot dogs and hamburgers on the grill, having a beer before the game, watching college football, but it doesn't.
Yeah, I've been to a game there at Arizona State, and this is the thing that's interesting. And then, I'm a stat guy. So I went back after this Arizona State fan told me what I'm going to share now. And I found data to support because I think most of the viewers know I was at Michigan State after I was at WVU. And so I went out to when Michigan State played Arizona State. And, Arizona State has a built-in advantage when teams travel in. I was sitting in the stands and I looked over at the clock. It has a temperature right now. This is a night game.
Oh, yeah.
It was 108 for a 7:00, I think, kick. And the guy next to me said, I was wearing a Michigan State shirt. He says, you're going to lose. And I said, why? He said, all you Eastern teams that come out are going to lose because you can't take the heat. You'll come out strong, but by the time the fourth.
That's right. Your legs get. Yeah, I know how the heat is. I've worked in it for years. I remember looking at my Sunto watch and it's saying 126. I'm like, how can that be? It doesn't feel like that. It's hot.
Yeah.
It felt more like 100, 102. What it does is you just don't realize until you literally, you feel like a dust ball is going to come out of your nose, and a cotton ball is going to come out of your ears, and you just, you just like,
yep.
It's strange. You just don't realize the heat is there because it's so dry, and everybody says, "Oh, dry heat." It's a thing. It's like a hair dryer.
And of course, the ASU players are used to it.
But they hydrate more. They're constantly drinking. Where we're always behind we're always a couple liters behind where we should be. They say if you're thirsty, it's too late, and that's just it. People start cramping, and then it's your muscles, and then it's your mind. But that's what people don't realize is you start making stupid decisions and being a little bit slow on on making those decisions is so important. I'm going down a rabbit hole, but that is the curse of the desert.
And the point is that West Virginia is not going there this year, but we are an Eastern team, and we're going to have to play there. And you have to be completely prepared for not only the heat, but you're also the hydration. Because I'll tell you, that's exactly what happened in the Arizona State-Michigan State game. Michigan State got the lead, and then you could just see the players that were cramping, and they lost the game in the fourth.
They wilt. The best way I can describe it is just like if you don't water a plant after a day and it's 85 degrees, it just kind of wilts and looks a little sad. That's what happens to the players. Yeah. But on the back end of that, you have, if your Sun Devil team or let's just say Arizona comes to Morgantown first week in November, it's peeing down rain, it's 38 degrees, and you're going to have a bunch of sad pandas out there. Right. With heat blowing on them. You know what I mean?
That's right. The larger question is, why isn't Arizona State more competitive? Is an important question because it's the flip side is why are athletics so important to UCF? Arizona State is a big university. It's a good university. So is Arizona, but they have not done what it takes at ASU to be a top-end school. They were in a variety of conferences before they joined the Pac-12. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it, they very rarely have made noise in the Pac-12, and no one expects them to make noise early on, at least in the Big 12. So, but
you don't even hear grumbling in their stomach. They're not even. It's just not even a rumble or a mumble, or you don't hear a peep. They don't. Utah every now and then will come out, or Oregon State had a good year this year. You'll have all these other teams hear about, but not those cats, huh?
Yep, they don't. But again, there are surprises. I'll put this back up again. That if you look at West Virginia, Lindy Sports last June when they came out, they predicted WVU was going to be not only last in the Big 12, but ranked 77th in the country. So my guess is that's probably where Arizona is going to be. Arizona State's going to be on most rank. They're going to be way down. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if Arizona State is down with Cincinnati and Houston. That's another school that has to be doing some soul searching in a football crazy state of Texas. Houston is, I wouldn't say on life support, but Houston football is definitely not Houston basketball. They've got a tremendous amount of work to do. And it's not.
Yeah, but Houston basketball hasn't been Houston basketball, not like the 80s where they had like five slamma jamma for 4 years. This is an outlaw. I mean, they were good the past couple years, but I mean, if they're like this 3 or 4 years in a row, then I'll be singing their praises. But they do have a hell of a good squad this year. But like we talked about, B-ball doesn't pay the bills unless you're Kansas, and that's monopoly money, just like Alabama has monopoly money. So sure. Yeah, got penthouse dreams here in Morgantown, and we got an outhouse budget. But let's talk about the NIL. If you want to contribute to the NIL, log on. It's a great way to feel like you're part of the Mountaineer, part of the team. Just donate $50. Don't go out to Taco Bell because it's expensive. You're gonna spend $40 on 4 people or $50. Not that I've been there lately. And throw that money towards the Mountaineers. Let a kid buy a book.
That's right. Country Roads Trust.
Country Roads Trust. And we got to thank Oliver Luck, and who else was on that steering committee? I think Pat White's on the steering committee now. And I think Daryl Talley is Daryl Talley.
Kendrick, owner of the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah, Kendrick. Yeah. So yeah, we got some good names, smart people making smart decisions. and they're utilizing that. Nico is coming back. I put a stat up yesterday where they had the top 12 quarterbacks per their ranking. Guess who was tied for 6th?
Yeah.
Garrett Green was tied with Penix Jr., Washington's quarterback. There it is. There it is. What do you think of that? That's amazing.
Yep.
Who would have thunk it? You know, and he's the national championship Michigan Wolverine quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, is graded lower, had a lower grade than Garrett Green. So, and we have him coming back. He didn't, you know, you don't have him going, you know, transferring to an SEC school or a Big Ten school. West Virginia's paying him enough. He believes in the program enough to keep his butt right there in Morgantown, along with Nico. Nico could have been offered, you know, a little bit of confetti on top of his cupcake, and I guess they're happy with what they're getting. They're happy with the program. They're happy with the direction it's going. I too am happy with the direction it's going. I'm not getting any NIL money, name and likeness. I would like a bobblehead maybe. So if anybody out there can make me a bobblehead, I'll put it up back there. I don't collect bobbleheads, but I would start if they had one with a beard and a bald head.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because what it shows is what coaches have to do these days. And that is, you recruit them once, but you have to recruit them after each season, re-recruit them. And if you'll notice, when these announcements are being made, like with Nico and all the others, the headline always is, Nico Marchiol signs with Country Roads Trust. That's what's happening. These players, Aubrey Burks, signing with Country Roads Trust. That means they had to be re-recruited by West Virginia to stay a Mountaineer, and the money that's going into NIL is helping them. And one of the things that's extremely important, you and I have talked about this, Joy and I have, is, look, there's a thing called integrity. And we're beginning to see the NCAA patrol schools and sanction them for their NIL activity. I think we can be very proud of Country Roads Trust. Here we go, Florida State didn't make the college football playoff, and now they're being sanctioned by the NCAA because they basically severed the NCAA, the relationship between one of these, what they call collectives, they collect money, and Florida State. And I think they banned a booster, one booster for a period of time. And so I'm glad the NCAA is doing that, because we've seen with what happened at Michigan and other places, you know, there shouldn't be any place for cheating associated with athletics. That's supposed to be a pure expression of who's better, and we have a score at the end to document it. But we all know there are issues with integrity in sports, including college sports. And no one's glad that Florida State was sanctioned by the NCAA, but it's a big bullhorn to college football programs around the country. Keep your house in order.
Yeah, you can't have one of those handlebar mustaches. You can't be popping a tent up behind the stadium and have an old-time Appalachian tent revival, selling snake oil and promising the moon and the stars, laying hands and healing people. That can't happen. There's regulation. The NCAA does have the ruler. They're out there slapping people in the hands. That's good to see. And it's good to see that the Mountaineers are doing it the right way, you know. Right. And I'm saying that because I honestly believe it. Until you prove otherwise, I genuinely feel that that's happening. I wouldn't have said that 2 years ago because I really didn't. I just didn't understand the process. I guess West Virginia, each program does it just a little bit differently. So there's really no standard outline for how to conduct this business. There's just parameters to the left, parameters are right, a crap load of gray area, and they're kind of just feeling it out. So, yeah, I'll tell you what, Frank, it's been fun. It's been a fun Friday night. I'm going to hop off here, and I'm going to go on to my next show, the Triple B Experience. We're going to be talking about NFL football. So I'll tell you what, it's been a good conversation, and the conversation will continue. If you have a comment in the comment section, please, give us any ideas you have for future shows. If you have any questions, concerns, put them down, and smash that like and subscribe button and share it. Let people know that we're out there.
Well, thank you, Yvette, for saying that. And I'll tell you what, we all love Joey. He's been great to us, and we love to work with him. And the good news is that the situation has been diagnosed, and I'm sure he's on medicine, and we God bless him, and we hope to have him back here very, very soon. So, Shane, always good working with you, and all eyes are going to be riveted on that game tomorrow night from Kansas City, because my understanding is it's supposed to be one of the coldest, blustery NFL games in the history of the league.
I tell you what, I feel bad for those South Florida boys rolling in there, not just because Taylor Swift and the Swifties are going to be there.
That's right. That is absolutely correct.
I hope she doesn't get locked in one of those popcorn containers that she sneaks in and freezes.
Oh,
you have a Swift sickle.
Yeah, it's one thing to be someone in the back in the where she's going to be, where it's nice and warm, or the players playing. But one of the things that always struck me about being at any college football game or a pro game this time of year, college game in November, sometimes even in October, pro games, is because I'm from the Buffalo area, so that's cold and snowy.
Oh,
is sitting in the stands for all that time. You have to get completely layered up, and it's a lot of fun, but boy, it's a real challenge.
Yeah, they call those games butt numbers.
You're absolutely correct. Well, good working with you, Shane. Good job as always. And next week, Joey will be back, I'm sure.
Join us Monday. We're going to be doing this show again on a regular time, Monday at 8 p.m. And then we're going to do the Big 12 show, 8 p.m. on Thursdays. So check us out, like and subscribe, and also click the notification button so you know when we're going to come live, and you can participate, and we'll get your comments read. Lots of love from Western Pennsylvania to down to Florida, out to California. If you're a Mountaineer, best wishes and Mountaineer kisses.
Great. Take care, everybody.